The last time you were here, we had you on this program a couple years ago. It was at a time, I remember, of some change in the nightly news business. Dan Rather had just peeled off. I believe Peter Jennings had either just passed away or was about to pass away. Tom Brokaw was passing the torch. It still nonetheless feels 2 years later like it's more in flux. You know, the attacks on Katie Couric and the way that CBS has changed the news. There was Brian Williams doing stand-up comedy pretty much this weekend on Saturday Night Live. You now have the stars of news are really Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert. And here you are, this guy who's been doing this for so long. I wonder if you look at the world that you live in now every day and think, this is crazy. This is like something I don't recognize.
Well, I'm not sure crazy is the word, but the first thing is that I think I could honestly say that I could claim to be a beacon of success in the area of boring news. In other words, we have not changed a lick since we started.
That's right.
32 years ago. Sure, we've changed a lot of things inside what we do. We've changed a lot of the people.
Robert McNeil is no longer.
No, he retired 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
But the basic thing of here's what happened that we think is important today. That was our concept when we began 32 years ago. And the only concept we have, the purpose, I should say, not concept, purpose. And it's still our purpose today. Now, there's been some changes in nightly news programs. There was particularly, more recently, there was a time where it was just, oh, well, we have to, not the NewsHour, but it's one of these nightly news programs, we need to be more entertaining.
Right.
We need to make people laugh and cry more. That is, down that road, in my opinion, lies absolute disaster. Because if you want to, I say this to people all the time, if you want to be entertained, for God's sake, go to the circus. Don't watch the nightly news program. For goodness sake, don't watch the NewsHour. That's not the line of work we're in.
Right.
These things, to me, are the symptoms of disaster. Because if we start going into other people's lines of work, we get out of ours, which is tell me what happened. Here's what happened that matters. Here's what happened that's important. And why that is critical. The American public, and there's increasing evidence of this, is sick and tired of just getting the information shouted at them. That's when they first hear about it, right. or to get it in some kind of entertaining way, or to get it in some kind of edgy way. If somebody's going to get the joke on Jon Stewart or get the joke on David Letterman, they have to first know what the news was.
That's right.
That the joke is about. And if somebody's going to get the shouting, get the blog, they're not going to understand it if they didn't know, first of all, what actually happened in the first place.
Right.
We're in the first place business, and right. We should stay there.
But of course, the heat, if you believe the talk on the internet and the talk out in the air, you would think it's all Fox News on the one side, or it's all Jon Stewart on the other side, and what the nightly newscasts are doing on the networks and what you all are doing is not as important. And yet, as you point out, your viewership totals are so
Absolutely
much higher than what's on cable.
You take, first of all, if you add the nightly news programs and commercial television and the NewsHour, there are about 25, 30 million people who watch those broadcasts every night. The NewsHour has a larger audience than any single cable television or pseudo cable television news program. I include O'Reilly, Olbermann. We're two and three times larger than Situation Room, Anderson Cooper. You go through all of those, and just for the record, our audience is larger than either Jon Stewart or Stephen Colbert.
Right.
And it's not something a lot of people know because we spend our money on our program and not on our advertising.
On promoting yourselves.
On promoting stuff. But the fact of the matter is there is a huge audience still, even though, yes, it's not as large as it used to be for the commercial television nightly news programs, but it's still a huge audience for people who care about what happened.
Do you ever watch, I know you're reluctant to talk about other newscasters or other newscasts, but do you ever watch what the other guys are doing either on the networks or on cable and think, you know, that's not so bad, that's pretty good?
Some of the nightly news broadcasts, the ones that Charlie Gibson and Brian Williams do, are, from my judgment, and I don't see them that often. They're very straightforward, for the most part. They're very straightforward.
These are news guys.
These are news people. These are old-fashioned news people. Some of the cable stuff, I don't watch any of that, to tell you the truth. So I'm not. I could honestly say I am not in a position to judge them.
Did you leave Katie Couric out deliberately?
The only reason I left Katie Couric out is because I haven't seen her. I've only seen 2 of her broadcasts,
right.
and only saw those because we're on the air at the same time they are.
That's exactly right.
And I've been watching Charlie Gibson for a long time, and when I travel, I always try to look at one of them. Mm-hmm. And I've seen 2 Katie Courics because my wife insisted that I TiVo them or tape them, and I did. And I saw one of her earlier broadcasts at the very beginning, and I've seen one recently, and there's a marked difference, which proves my point that Katie Couric got a bad rap.
Well,
it wasn't her.
That, yeah.
It wasn't her at all. I mean, she may have gone along with it. I'm sure she did, or it wouldn't have happened. But they decided not only to Bob Schieffer was doing a terrific job. Of course, Schieffer's my friend. Schieffer's from Texas, former newspaper man. Same we both worked together in different newspapers. He was in Fort Worth, I was in Dallas, but he's my buddy. So I was president. But what's all Schieffer did, same thing Charlie Gibson's doing now, and what Brian Williams does for all practical purposes, just say, okay, here's what happened.
Right.
And we got this correspondent will tell you live this and this and whatever. And what they did with Katie Couric is they not only changed her, in other words, put her in the Schieffer chair, or what used to be the Rather chair, they decided to jazz it up and to change the nature of the broadcast and have her stand there like a sex symbol of some kind, stand in front, leaning out the thing. Though, good God Almighty, what is this? This is not the news. And of course, the public isn't stupid. And
they didn't much like it, did they?
That's okay at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
That's okay at midnight. But this is the nightly news program, and so and she suffered terribly for that. And if they'd just let her, my theory, and I may be dead wrong about this, if they had just put her in that chair, and when Schieffer got up and said, okay, now here's Katie Couric, and she continued to report the news seriously, just as they've been doing at CBS from day one, she would have not had the problems she's had.
But she's better now.
Sure. The program's completely changed. The program is just like, it's again, a serious news program.
Gone back to being a news show.
Yeah.
Leaving the broadcast piece of this to the side for a second, let me go a little bit broader. Is the media doing a good job right now? I heard you say yesterday at the Texas Book Festival that you thought, for instance, the media had done a really good job on Iraq in telling the world what was going on. Most of what we know, all of what we know, has come from enterprise reporting, which of course contrasts with what happened at the very beginning of the war when everyone said the media had done a terrible job. So I want to hear you talk a bit about your view of.
Well, here's the reason I say they've done a good job as reporters, as reporting what happened, what's happening, and what has happened, and what is happening on the ground in Iraq, and all of the politics around it, and all of the decision making from the president on down about Iraq after the initial phase, that because the American public at a level that is historically is historical in every respect, does not support what's going on.
That's right.
Is appalled by what's going on the ground. So where did they find out about this? They found out about it as a result of reporting. Where else would they have found out about it? And this covers the waterfront. This isn't a political issue. This isn't just liberals or conservatives who are upset. This is, I mean, the liberals who are anti-war. I don't mean anti-war, but upset about the way this thing has been conducted and upset about the results of various aspects. Conservatives feel the same way. It doesn't break down by party line either. You would think it does if you were to look at some of these votes in the Congress. The Congress still hasn't gotten it.
Yeah.
They're still playing.
Typically the last ones to know.
They are the last ones to know what the American public thinks about these things. I just find it extraordinary because they're the ones that are spending all this money on all these polls and they don't pay attention to anything. Because this, you look at all the anecdotal evidence and the survey evidence. The country is less ideological, less political as a party right now than they have ever been. People couldn't care less whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or a conservative on Iraq specifically. They just want something done.